What was your "I don't get paid enough for this" moment at work? Before we start, be sure to like and subscribe to be the first to know about new videos. Comment your answer below. Worked at a fast food place about 13 years ago. This lady in the drive-thru claimed she was missing a sandwich. Our policy was to ask for the bags back to verify. I asked to see the bags 3 or 4, decent-sized order, and instead of handing them back like a civilized human being, she instantly started raging and throwing the food into the window while cussing me out. Guess what one of the items that she threw at me was? Yep, said missing sandwich. I walked into the bathroom, and someone had smeared poop on literally every single surface, wall, everything except one small part of the ceiling they couldn't reach. Poo-kasoo almost made me quit, but luckily my boss told me to lock it, not let anyone else use it, and he got someone to come with a pressure washer. Got change thrown in my face at work because a man was upset we didn't have meatballs. Now if I'm working, he'll come in, see me, and walk out. I work in childcare. There was one time we had one kid who had a diaper blowout and one kid who puked everywhere. There's only 2 teachers, so one has to handle the blowout and one the vomit, while also keeping the rest of the kids away from it all. Direct support staff for people with minor disabilities. 13, and now I had a client go off the rails because he refused to take schizophrenia pills, was working night shift, and he gets up in the middle of the night and starts yelling random things, running around the house naked, peeing on everything, asking for me to put a cowboy hat on him. He is now in a nursing home, bless his soul. I had an emergency, last minute 20,000 word translation that needed to be done in under 24 hours. The usual output for a translator is 2,000 words per day, including proofreading and editing. I don't know how, but I managed to bash it out. Not my best quality translation ever, but I got it done. My boss insisted that everybody be at their desks at 8:30 sharp. She made me take roll on an attendance sheet and hand it in to her every day. She also made me do it at lunchtime when everybody left and came back, and when they left at night. Took roll for a bunch of adults 3 times a day. I don't work there anymore. I manage a fast food restaurant, and for me it's always things that have to do with the bathroom. From having to clean up porn magazines with semen on the floor or walls, to people either purposely bleep on the floor, even used hypodermic needles. Working at Target on Black Friday in the back room without anyone else to help me pull the product and getting told I am not keeping up. Weird how I got sick 2 hours into my volunteered 12 hours shift. Used to work as a dental nurse. First patient of the bleep day, bloke said he felt sick after having a local anesthetic. He looked it. I grabbed the bin and told him if he needed to vomit, take the bin. He held it in his lap and turned, vomiting down the side of the chair and all over my pants and shoes. Of course I had to clean it up, and of course they wouldn't let me go home to change. My mother was moving interstate with my father, and it was the last time I'd see either of my parents for months. I was 18 and just graduated school. I explained this to my boss, but he just said I would have to see her another time because he needed a fence put up over the weekend. I told him I was leaving either way and he could put his own fence up. I quit soon after that. He also accused me of lying and berated me multiple times for random things that I either didn't do, and refusing to pay me for weeks at a time. Was working the registers at a grocery store. About an hour before closing, a customer comes to my lane with 2 48-count egg cartons. Stumbles a bit putting them onto the belt, and before I can react the entire thing was on the ground. Best part? Apparently the janitor had left already, so I got to spend the next hour cleaning up 96 broken eggs with nothing but paper towels. Having to listen to a child scream his head off because the father insisted on injection instead of the calming drug we usually use for kids that small. Bleep father. That kid is going to be scared of the dentist for a long time, if not for life. Doing landscaping during the summers while in college. I rolled up a long piece of sod I had just cut and placed it in a wheelbarrow. When I turn back around, there's a copperhead sitting in the wheelbarrow giving me the stank eye. Apparently I had rolled a copperhead up in the sod and carried it to the wheelbarrow before he was able to get out. I ended up having to kill 4 copperheads that day. When a clarinet came across my bench that someone had jizzed in. When I found a dead mouse in a bari sax. When people think duct tape or superglue is an acceptable substitute for soldering parts together, when people use superglue on their instruments, period. Had a metal bolt thrown at me while teaching 13-year-olds. It missed, but it could really have hurt me. I'm not the best teacher, not by a long mile, but I don't deserve that kind of bleep. When I walked into the room of a confused patient on blood thinners who had ripped out his forend catheter, and had bleep and blood on every surface of his room. It looked like a murder had been committed. I've been through a lot as a nurse, but that was like going into a war zone. I have to render at least 3 hours of OT to get everything done within the deadline, and we get no OT or holiday pay. I work from home as a freelance content writer, and it's a pretty relaxing gig most of the time. But, every now and then, I get a client that will constantly bug me for updates 2 to 3 times a day. I usually drop the contract when they get on my nerves, since they're not worth the stress and anxiety. When I was 15 and working at McDonald's, someone dropped their colostomy bag in the bathroom, causing what can only be described as a massive bleep explosion. Guess who got paid $6 an hour to clean that up? It was on the bleep ceiling. It was everywhere. An old job, they decided to decrease hours but keep the 2-for-1 burger pizza deal on, meaning I'd spend 12 hours in a basement kitchen by myself trying to cook burgers, roll out pizza doughs and do the KP work at the same time. Cleaning my boss's period blood from the chair she sat on. I still can't believe the disgusting woman walked off and left it like that. Yes, she knew. Edit. Of course my biggest comment ends up being about that woman's period SMH. Having to work a 12-hour overnight shift on a Friday in addition to working my full week of hours. This happened for a whole month BC. My company at the time didn't see hiring someone for that shift as a priority. I was a manager of a remote location. My former boss is a bleep. Hence why former. Working retail at a smaller hardware store. My boss called me on my first weekend off in 3 months to ask me how to process a transaction because he had no idea. Wanted me to walk him through it over the phone while the customer was waiting. When I started getting calls at 3:30 AM to clarify some data in one of the reports I had sent in 3 days ago. Just because the bleep who called worked nights, since he had a wife in another country with a 10-hour time difference and wanted to stay up to match hours with her. I make 13/hour. On an ambulance. Every day is, and I don't get paid enough for this moment. Worked at McDonald's in high school. Some jerk thought it would be funny to take a bleep in the middle of the bathroom floor. It was the front register operator's job to clean the dining area and bathroom during slow times at the time, mine. I clocked out and left. Worked in retail. They allowed pets in the store, not a pet store tow. There were a few times when people would just let their dog bleep on the floor and then walk away. Anytime it happened, it'd call a manager and be like, "Hey, I'll steer people away from the area, but this is a biohazard, so I'm not touching it." The word biohazard usually let me off the hook even if they tried to press it. Lol. Going to war, and being under fire, as part of compulsory military service, which pays $150 a month. They do pay more today, but not much. When I worked front desk in a residential building and one of the residents came to me and said the devil was in his apartment. Then proceeded to stand 2 feet from me and start praying Muslim style, which he wasn't, only to get up and walk away like nothing happened. He had a look in his eyes I'll never forget, and I was sure he was gonna do something to me. I never called 911, so bleep fast. Turns out he was high on K2. I work at the busiest McDonald's in the county, and on Sundays it's an absolute hellhole due to the church rush. For a while, they had been scheduling me and this other guy to deal with it by ourselves around 800-1000. So basically, we had to cook lots of burgers, nuggets, tenders, etc., and still make hundreds of sandwiches at the same time. We were both really fast, so I guess that's why they did that to us, but it really made me want to die tbh. When my boss screamed at me for something they got wrong. This was a couple hours after two coworkers almost came to blows because one of them left their phone overnight and the other, the first person to arrive in the shop, used it to send a prank text to another coworker but didn't want to admit it. I have to install woodwork that's level and plumb. I never get paid enough to deal with the fact that formers and framers have zero clue what level and plumb means. A customer broke my nose because he thought I stole his phone. Turns out, he just left it in his shopping cart. I had to leave in the middle of my shift and took the next day off, with a doctor's excuse. I was disciplined point system, 7 points for termination, received 2 points for missing my shifts. When asked to set up a sting in concert with the Secret Service to get a laptop from a disgruntled employee. I'm an office manager. Seriously. You don't pay me enough for that. 2 weeks notice was quickly given. I'm a student working part-time minimum wage retail. Even though I don't put effort into the job already, 15-year-old boys walking up to me with sports crotch protectors asking if we carry a XXL does make me die inside. Standing on a 6 feet ladder 2 feet from an exposed elevator shaft that leads 6 stories down. No harness, no spotter. Nearly pitch black room. Yeah, Grandasage, just wire up that AC unit, no biggie. When I was told I needed to be nice and stop causing problems because I had reported a new employee, who happened to be friends with the boss, for racism against our Hispanic employees. I could forget all the sexual assault, the literally having another employee bite my bleep, the anti-Semitism toward me, but I will not put up with some guy coming in and being racist to the people I work with. I worked at a Walmart for a summer and a customer flipped bleep on me and another employee because we didn't carry the kind of cheese he wanted. In the end, he said that he would go to the other Walmart in the area. My response was, "That's fine, sir. It all goes to the same place." I was just newly working as a bartender at a local restaurant in my city. They asked me to clean under the pop machine behind the bar since the old bartender never did it. There was a buildup of old pop that had dripped onto the floor. It had turned almost into a thick molasses/tar-like substance. Upon scraping it off of the floor, I had found a rat that had died because it got stuck to the pop/tar. Quit working at that place soon after. When a guy covers himself in poop and starts to flood his cell ranks pretty high on my list. My manager at a Golden Corral got mad at me for not serving the customers. As I said, it's Golden Corral. It's a buffet. They pick what they want, and get it themselves. You can still serve IT. Before every shift we had to put our hands together and scream the name of the restaurant on the count of 3, I still cringe thinking about it. Someone wiped their bleep on the balance bar thing next to the toilet when I worked in fast food. While in college I worked at gas station. One night an elderly man ran in and went straight to the restroom. 20 minutes later he walked out with no pants on and bleep everywhere in the restroom. Snapping into a 6 inches cast iron waistline to install a new fitting and having turds, piss and warm sudsy water from a clothes washer rain down on me even though the tenants of the building were given 72 hours advance notice to not use any plumbing fixtures for a scant 45 minutes, and it went on for the entire 30 minutes it took to snap in the fitting. I was carrying out personal care on a guy with cerebral palsy. He couldn't clean himself after voiding his bowels, so I would have to wipe his backside for him. He called out for some assistance as he had finished his business, so I pulled his toileting chair from over the bowl to get access to the offending area. After a couple of wipes I then looked to see him laying a cable directly onto my forearm. Whilst trying to preserve the client's dignity by not drawing attention to it, all I wanted to do was chunder all over the floor. There's better ways to earn minimum wage. A customer started screaming at me as he wasn't happy with the news I was telling him about his car. I put my hand up and said, "Stop, follow me," and started walking. I walked up to my manager's office, knocked on the door and guided him inside. I said he gets paid to get yelled at. I don't turned around and left. My bonus check, which was basically 20% of my salary since he didn't give raises, regardless if I knocked out financials out of the park, were then tied to getting my office Google reviews. My boss told me eventually I'd need to get 10 a month. We were a boutique immigration firm. I worked as a nanny for a family of 9 children. The youngest, at 9, was a violent schizophrenic. In one day, she tried to kill her brother with a rock, chased me with a knife, left me with bites and scratches while I was restraining her, and told me how there were people screaming in the walls. I was paid $13.50 per hour. Working in the ASD field, listening to parents say that their children were absolutely neurotypical before they received vaccinations, and stating that they wish they could go back and refrain from giving their children these vaccinations. People, what's worse, dead kids or autism? As a teenage babysitter, being left to do a head lice treatment for a 3-year-old girl with a huge head of super tight curly hair, and comb it all out with the super fine comb. Gross. I personally don't think I have one, but my colleague let a blind man use the staff toilet in the train station and regretted it. Head bleep all over the seat, bless him, and he was the one who had to clean it up, even though I told him no one but the staff should use the toilet. It was his own fault. Picking up the pieces at 3 a.m. in pouring rain after a train fatality suicide. I work as a coach at a nearby company, earning £6 an hour as a weekend job. I am the least paid, and now I have a year's experience under my belt to no raise. Now, I'm seeing new coaches, some younger than me, joining the company and earning £8, £10. I was working at a pizza joint in a kind of rough area. We had an open bathroom to anyone who could walk in without a key or anything. Someone told us there was some blood on the bathroom counter and a needle. Boss asked me to clean it up. I laughed and said no, I'm not touching that. A good laugh. Watching a co-worker logging every little mistake he perceived me making, which he didn't think I noticed. He was doing it on behalf of our manager, who wanted me out so a friend of hers could take my job. So I quit and found a much better job. Later, this guy and the manager were both fired because they generally sucked. Lol. Working in a kitchen when the manager had decided he wanted all of the staff to come in on a Sunday, a day off for everyone, to deep clean the restaurant. He said we wouldn't be getting paid, but he would have pizza for us when it was all done. Needless to say, I did not show up. I don't do free labor. I remember working at a clothing shop, and twice in a year they would have this huge discount day, so the amount of people would be insane. And every employee would work on that day, although, we never got paid more by dealing with everything on that day. Because the department I work in is close to the washrooms, I've been asked numerous times to let our direct supervisor know if some of the less productive members of our team take extended bathroom breaks. But I'm not management, and I'm not going to document bathroom break durations. You have been visited by Sad Cat. Like this video and subscribe to the channel to make Sad Cat happy again.